sports fans, and welcome to another edition of Sports Talk Weekly. I'm your host, Chris Jester, and tonight I am joined on the mic once again by Mr. Josh Gomez. Josh, how are you doing tonight?
Pretty good. What about you?
I'm doing, not doing too bad. Also joining us are all the way from Burlington, North Carolina, Mr. J.R. Madison. J.R., welcome to the show.
How you doing?
Doing good.
Doing good. Enjoying this beautiful weather.
Yeah, nice. All right. How is the weather in North Carolina? Is it cold like everywhere else?
It was raining yesterday, but it was pretty nice today. It's actually been pretty warm. But high 80s, low 90s. So.
Jealous. I live in Indiana. It's pretty fucking cold up here.
I'm sorry.
We're going to start off with some news from earlier today. Colts defensive end Robert Mathis was suspended for the first 4 games of the upcoming NFL season for a violation of the NFL's substance abuse policy. Mathis reportedly tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs, but said in a statement that his positive test came from a medication he took while seeking a solution to fertility issues. Mathis said he asked his doctor if the medication was prescribed contained any substances banned by the NFL, and he was told they did not. Mathis admitted he made the mistake of not double-checking with the Players Association before he took the medication at the end of last season. Mathis said he worked with the Players Association to negotiate a punishment that would not result in a suspension, but that his request was denied by Commissioner Roger Goodell. The couple was trying to have a child before Mathis' mother, who is in the 4th stage of cancer of the esophagus, passed away. The question I have for you guys is, do you think the punishment fit the crime, and do you think Commissioner should have worked with Mathis and the Players Association on a less harsh punishment, given the circumstances? What do you guys think? Call in at 760-512-7247 and voice your opinions with us live on the air. Do you think the punishment was fair, or is Goodell being too much of a rule stickler? Let us know. Josh, we'll start with you.
I think just when you first hear, it was like the performance-enhancing drug policy, blah, blah, blah. When I first heard that, I'll be honest, I thought it was HGH or, the DB drug Adderall or something like that. When I find out it's a fertility drug, I kind of think it's one of those things where it's like, sure, he technically violated the policy, but it's something you really should have probably talked with him and maybe worked something out before. I mean, because 4 games for basically trying to have a child seems a little extreme for me. I'm expecting that more news and information will come out, but as of right now, 4 games for just like a fertility drug seems a little extreme to me.
It's like one of the leading things people are saying is he should have checked with the NFLPA. That's what it's for. They're supposed to be there to have your back and make sure. And they're right. But I mean, you got to remember, like, not being able to have a child is a sensitive topic. What man wants to admit, to his teammates and his peers and people like that he's incapable of having a child? That's not an easy thing to talk about. You know what I mean? So I understand, and it's a small thing. It's a side effect. They found it in the system, so there's proof there. I think Goodell needs to chill out on this one.
I personally think it should have been at least a 1, maybe 2-game suspension, or if anything, at least a fine.
Fine. And I think a fine would be the best way to go about it.
And I actually heard that him and his camp, the agent and stuff, whatever, I don't know the hell a camp is. They're talking about like putting together an appeal, and I mean Richard Sherman passed his appeal for a quote unquote miswritten prescription. Whether you believe that or not is a different story. But I mean he passed his appeal, so there is no reason to think he couldn't pass his.
Right. Yeah. I hope that Goodell takes all the information at hand and really looks at it fairly. But I don't know. The guy's had a history of being kind of a hard ass about things that aren't really that big of a deal. He's very much a rules are rules kind of guy. There's no gray area with him.
But there's been a few instances with the Goodell. I think he was kind of damned if he did, damned if he didn't. So,
JR, what are your thoughts?
Well, basically, I don't believe he should have got like a 4-game suspension. That seems a little much. I mean, if you think about it, 4 games. That's a lot. Like,
that's a month without pay. That's a quarter of the season. That's
not only that, and it really hurts the Colts when you think about it, because Robert Mathis is like the guy that they plan against during their week-to-week basis.
He had a career year last year with 19.5 sacks.
Right, and that's
it's not even
just people too, and they heard performance-enhancing drugs. You know what I mean?
It's not even just like the sacks that they're missing. It's just the pressure on the quarterback.
And just his presence in the locker room. And as soon as they said performance-enhancing drug policy, Twitter, as they always do, they went crazy.
Oh, yeah, they blew it way out of proportion.
Yeah, just because it was like maybe they should have worded, maybe used substance abuse, not performance-enhancing drug, because that's a whole other connotation. Because substance abuse, that could be he could have been just getting high in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
In Indiana, you can't blame the guy.
Yeah. No comment.
Shout out to Chris Jester.
Yeah. The thing is, like, the fertility drugs that he was taking, they're a side effect of performance They group in with performance-enhancing drugs, so that's why it showed up there. That doesn't mean he's taking steroids, but people want to jump out to that.
Actually, if you actually look at what qualifies as a performance-enhancing drug, it is very ambiguous.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are some over-the-counter medications that if you take them before you take a drug test, you'll have elevated levels of HGH and different things like that too. So I mean, there is some gray area with that.
Like JR was saying,
you could take like a Mucinex.
It's not just about the sacks either. The pressure that Mathis puts on, it helps out. It helps out the other guy on the other side. It helps out the secondary. They don't have to cover the receivers as long.
Another question is, and really
thing.
Yeah, and I've mentioned this on a show before. Sacks themselves are isolated plays. I mean, like even 19.5 sacks, that which is a great season. I'd imagine that's probably less than 2% of the snaps he played last year.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But just like the constant pressure and just how you have to know where he's at all times. And I'd imagine too, because he's been around for long. He's probably one of the leaders in the locker room.
Can you imagine that? Can you believe that guy was a 5th round pick, and he was a Kansas
That's incredible.
Player of the Year last?
I did not know he was a 5th round pick.
Yeah, and I think he's going to walk into the Hall of Fame one day. It really shows that the draft is an inexact science.
Mm-hmm, for sure. All right. Well, we're gonna keep up with it. As more information is released, we'll be on it, and we'll probably talk about it more next week if anything comes out. Until then, we're gonna move on to some NBA talk. We found out today that the Thunder's star forward Serge Ibaka is going to likely miss the remainder of the NBA playoffs with a calf injury. This is obviously a huge blow to the Thunder's title aspirations. Josh, we'll start with you. What are the Thunder's chances against San Antonio now without Ibaka?
Really, even with Ibaka, I didn't think they really had a great chance. Just because, I mean.
Biased Sonics fan.
Hey, now, listen here. I'm trying to be impartial here. But I will say this. When you have Kevin Durant, who right now, is there anyone playing better than Kevin Durant right now? And Russell Westbrook, for all his faults, is playing out of his freaking mind right now. I feel like they have a shot. It's just the question I have now is just, without Ibaka, how are they going to really handle the paint with the Spurs?
How are they going to stop Tim Duncan?
Yeah,
that's
fundamental.
where I was going to go with it. Like, they have no inside presence anymore. Tim Duncan is just going to tear him apart.
Yeah. The last game, the Clippers Thunder series, Durant dropped 39 and 16. If he can do that every game, then the Thunder have a chance. But otherwise, it's not too good. Personally, I thought the Thunder had a tremendous chance against the Spurs with Ibaka. They're a young team. They're obviously much faster than San Antonio. They provide matchup problems for them. I don't think Parker can handle Westbrook's size and speed. I think there's no one in the league really, aside from maybe LeBron, who can guard Durant one-on-one. Ibaka gives them a rim protector that is very valuable, and without him, I think the marginal advantages the Thunder had go out the window. It was going to be a close series no matter what. No matter which way you went, no one would really criticize you or think you were giving a biased perspective. But now without Ibaka, I think the Spurs are clear favorites to go back to the finals. I'm just hoping the games are still as good as they could be. And you can't help but feel for Thunder Nation as they had to deal with losing Russell Westbrook during the playoffs last year and now Ibaka this year. I hope they still pull it out, but this is a very bad time to lose a key player on your team for the remainder of the season. Yeah. Legitimately, I think the Thunder's 2 best players have to play absurd, and they have a very deep rotation. They're a very good team. But, Ibaka is a very core piece. I think they'd almost be better off losing Westbrook again than they would be losing Ibaka.
And really, I think that really, I hate the term big three, but you can make a case for Ibaka being the third in that 3.
Oh, yeah, definitely is. Yeah. His ability at the rim, and he's having a career season, too. This is the best year of his career.
Yeah. He's averaging more than 3 points a game.
Wow. That was good.
That was good.
He's getting a solid 4. Woo! No. I mean, when Russell Westbrook and Durant are dominating the ball, who's going to score more than 3 a game, period, right?
James Harden.
Okay. Jeff Green. They're both gone. Let's name former Thunder players. Sean Kemp.
He never played for the fucking Thunder.
They're the same team.
No, they're not. You talk about the Thunder Nation losing Russell Westbrook last year and Ibaka this year. I lost the fucking team.
Game 1 will be Monday night at 9 p.m. on TNT. Transitioning over to the East Coast, we look ahead to the potential opponents for the Thunder or the Spurs in this year's NBA Finals when the Heat take on the Indiana Pacers. Game 1 will be Sunday afternoon at 3:30 p.m. The Pacers finally have the home court advantage they worked so hard to earn throughout the regular season. But do they even want it anymore? This is almost a series that favors the road team, as both teams have played less than their best at home. I think everybody's picking the Heat to take the series, and in some cases in as few as 5 games. While I don't predict such a lopsided series, as I think the Pacers will play a little better up to their competition, like they have at certain points during the season, we have to remember this is a team that took 13 games to put away inferior competition like the Atlanta Hawks and the Washington Wizards. Sorry, JR. So we can't get ahead of ourselves and ignore Indiana's struggles. But this is definitely a case where Indiana can make Miami work for it. I have the Heat in 6 games. I think that's a fair balance of acknowledging Miami's the better team, but that Indiana is much better than the teams Miami's faced so far. JR, we'll start with you this time. I'm sure you have a unique perspective after your Wizards were just ousted last night by the Pacers.
Yeah, pretty sad about my Wizards, but I mean, it was more of a bandwagon type thing. I am a Knicks fan. Sadly, but I have to agree with you on the Heat in 6. I mean, Miami, Indiana. Everyone knew that this was going to be the conference finals. This is the same series, but just a different day. I mean, you take a look at it, and the Pacers needed 7 games to beat the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah,
really?
Yeah.
And the Miami has played 9 games in the playoffs so far. They've dropped 1 game, I think.
Yeah, 1 game to the Nets, and a series that, if you listen to any Nets fan, they would tell you, oh, the Nets are going to win. They swept the regular season series. That was never a close series. The Heat won it in 5 games, and yet every Nets fan I hear is all, but the refs.
I mean,
like, you lost in
being
5
a Knicks
games.
fan, we know exactly how the Nets are like.
Nets fans are converted Celtics fans.
That's true.
Good point. I mean, no one was a New Jersey Nets fan, but there are plenty of Brooklyn Nets fans. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and probably about a good percentage of them were Celtics fans before this year.
The people in New York need someone to root for, especially after Carmelo leaves to go to the Bulls.
No.
Josh, tell us what Indiana needs to do to have a chance of beating the Heat.
What they have to do, they have to Tanya Harding LeBron James.
All right.
That's what they have to do.
They have to hit LeBron James with a bus. That's what they have to do.
Yeah.
I think
they have to find the Monstars to take the Heat's talent.
They have to shoot him in the leg. I think that's what they have to do.
We're giving
then
Indiana
they might
no
have
chance.
A chance.
We're giving Indiana no chance. No, I think if Roy Hibbert
they have to send LeBron's. They have to send Jay-Z's or Beyonce's sister into the Heat locker room to do some regulation.
Make all the
Heat in 6 is being generous to Indiana.
I'm actually going to get bold. I say the Heat sweep.
You think the Heat sweep the Pacers?
Wow.
Why the fuck not?
All right, you heard it.
Good point. Why not? But I'm gonna have to say Heat in 5. I mean, Roy Hibbert is, in my opinion, one of the greatest defensive players that is playing right now. I mean, you take a look back at last year and how he basically single-handedly knocked the Knicks out of the playoffs.
But at the same time with Roy Hibbert, when he is bad, he is fucking terrible.
Oh, yeah. When he's bad, he's bad. But when he's on, he's fantastic.
Like when he's bad, I'm watching thinking, what the hell is he doing in the NBA?
All right. I'm going to play devil's advocate here for Indiana. All right. Got to rep the home team. All right. So you got to remember, like, there are multiple times this year, like, there were especially two regular season games that stood out at the end of the season, where they played Miami and Oklahoma City, and they won both of those games. Indiana plays up to the competition or down to the competition. So when they played poorly against teams like the Wizards and the Hawks, it's because they don't take in the moment. You know, they didn't do what Miami did. They didn't steamroll those teams. They struggled with those teams because they played down to the competition. When Roy Hibbert doesn't play well, the rest of the team gets mopey. They get down on themselves, and the fans get down on them, and then it snowballs. Indiana has the talent. They took Miami to 7 games last year. If David West and Roy Hibbert play well inside, Miami has huge matchup problems with them. If Paul George plays like he did last year, the Pacers do have a legitimate chance at winning the series. Now,
exactly. They need to play to their potential, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Are those things going to happen? Probably not.
I don't. I mean, you look at the past 2 series the Pacers have played, and they haven't been playing to their full potential.
Here's also something to take into account with the Pacers too. That even though I'm standing by my bold prediction, but.
Sweep.
The Pacers historically have played when there's expectations, when they're expected to do well, they fold. But when they're the underdog that no one expects to win, they play up. They seem to embrace that role like last year when no one expected them to be able to hang with the Heat and they took them to 7. So you have to wonder if maybe that they need that underdog type of role. Despite them being the number 1 seed, no one is giving them a snowball's chance in hell to win this.
Frank Vogel needs to play the tape of Josh saying the Pacers are going to get swept by the Heat, because if
last year I was pretty confident that my Knicks were going to make it past the Pacers, and after seeing what last year I didn't really follow, how well the Pacers were doing, and the Knicks and the Pacers played each other, and Roy Hibbert just absolutely just shut up any Knicks plays whatsoever. He single-handedly won that game.
But then this year the Knicks did that to themselves. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, I really did expect Indiana to. Honestly, I picked Indiana to win the championship that year after what I saw that they did to New York.
And they're a really talented group, and like Josh said, if they're under the underdog role, Indiana's a terrifying team, and that's the thing. Miami is a veteran team. They are not going to take Indiana lightly. They're not going to listen to what all the sports people out there say with, Heat in 5, Heat in 4, Heat in 6. They're not going to listen to that. They're going to treat it like this is going to be a 7-game series again. They know how Indiana played them last year, and they know that they're worse.
I was going to mention that too. I'd imagine that last year Indiana scared them.
Mm-hmm.
They did.
Let's not pretend that Miami's played particularly well at home. Let's not pretend that they're just as good as they were last year. They're not. The Heat have weaknesses.
This is the year. If you're going to break up their potential championship streak this year, they're vulnerable right now.
I'll stand by Heat in 6, but I think Indiana's going to fight them every game. I don't think there'll be any blowouts. I think Indiana is a young, immature team, and that's what they're struggling with. But their talent shows in the 58 games they won.
So we have Heat in 4, Heat in 5, and Heat in 6.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. If you guys want to call in and discuss the NBA playoffs or anything else, you know what to do. You can reach us at 760-512-7247. You can call at any point during the duration of the show, and we'll take your calls. A few new head coaches found a home this week. Stan Van Gundy is back in charge of an NBA team, as he is the new head coach and president of basketball operations for the Detroit Pistons. Van Gundy has a 64% career winning percentage in the regular season and a 48% win percentage in the playoffs. He led the Orlando Magic to the NBA Finals once in the 2008-2009 season and led two different teams, the Miami Heat, to the conference finals in 2005 and the Orlando Magic in 2010. He was most famously fired in 2012 after the Magic star player Dwight Howard told management he wanted Van Gundy gone. Howard left anyway. Van Gundy inherits a Pistons team that has been in shambles since their streak of 6 straight conference finals appearances that lasted from 2003 to 2008. Van Gundy is the Pistons' 6th head coach in 6 seasons. The team hopes he can get them back to their winning ways. It's the first exciting hire for the Pistons in a long time. So starting with you, Josh, how quickly do you think Stan Van Gundy can turn the Pistons around, if at all?
Well, actually, you forgot what one major firing in his career was when he was fired, so Pat Riley could finally get his ring.
He stepped down. He wasn't fired.
Quote unquote.
Right.
But I think like one thing I'll say though is that he has experience in the finals, and the Pistons, for God, they need something. Pistons fans need something to grasp onto, because if you watch that team in the last 5 years.
Oh, if I was a Pistons fan, I'd be thrilled right now. Joe Dumars is gone. Stan Van Gundy is in charge of everything, and he is a nail. Well, that was the top choice for any team, and they nailed it.
I mean, I think it's a step in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Especially
there's no way you're not excited as hell right now.
I kind of looked at him too when he as a broadcaster, kind of like with John Gruden with the NFL, where he was I think he was content in his role for a while, but he wanted to get back into coaching.
Yeah.
I think he was just waiting for the right job.
This is his first NBA coaching job outside of Florida, too. I think it's going to be a little bit of a culture shock to go all the way to Detroit.
I hope he knows that it's not sunny there.
I hope he brings Ben Wallace with him. He needs a bodyguard.
He might as well just bring all the bad boys with him. Just bring the bad boy Pistons with him.
So how quick do you think, realistically, could Van Gundy turn the Pistons around?
I'd say...
Remember how weak the Eastern Conference is?
I was going to mention that.
Define turnaround. Are we talking 8th seed or contending for the conference finals?
In the East, I think, give them 2 years and they could contend for the Bobcat spot.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long?
I don't know. The Knicks might be. The Knicks might take the Bobcat spot.
How long before?
I still got hope.
Flirting with at least the Toronto status. How long before that? How long before they're a 3, 4, 5 seed?
I'd say if he's given patience and true control of the team, I think in the next 3 to 5 years they could be in that 3, 4, 5 area.
Well, being a Bulls fan and knowing the Pistons roster really well because we play them so much, I know that their big problem they have is they signed Josh Smith in the offseason when they already had Andre Drummond and Eugene Monroe, or Greg Monroe, sorry, Eugene Monroe, football player, and Andre Drummond, and they had this problem where their entire front court was like 6'10" and 6'11", and Josh Smith was playing out of position. And Monroe is a natural center, so power forward's not a good position for him. It really made things awkward for them on defense because quicker teams were able to just dominate them on the ball. So one of the things Pistons fans are asking for is because Greg Monroe is going into the final year of his contract, there's been a lot of talk of him getting traded to teams like Boston for Jeff Green, just sending him to a different place where they can get him off the roster, move Josh Smith back to power forward, draft a 3, and start to turn that team in the right direction. The other big mistake they made was signing overrated as hell Brandon Jennings, who can't play defense to save his life, and he's like 5'1".
I mean, that was the direction I was going to go with. I mean, signing Van Gundy, that's a step in the right direction, but they still have several steps in front of them as far as signing and getting the right people in the right position.
The roster's got some problems.
Exactly.
Now,
they need to fix that.
Drummond is a super talented center. He is the future of the center position in the NBA. He is very, very good. I'm terrified of what that kid has to bring to the table, and they're going to build around him, and they should. You should build around your young center. Take a page out of Van Gundy and Orlando's book. They built around Dwight Howard. They didn't know he was going to bail on him, but that was the idea, build around your young center. Monroe needs to be moved first so that they can get the cap space and get that piece out of there so that they can start to rebuild. And it's appealing to other teams because you're getting a young, talented big man. Center is a piece in the NBA right now that there isn't a lot of a lot of people don't have a good center. So getting a good center, and it's a guy with an expiring contract. So if you know he won't stay, you have the ability to move him again, or he'll be off your books and it'll save you cap space. I think that he's going to be a really easy piece to move, and them needing a trade to Boston for Jeff Green just sounds like a perfect world for both teams. I don't know if that happens, but
I was about to say, that sounds good for both sides.
Yeah, I think that would work out really well. Green had one of his better seasons this year, and he's got more value than he's ever had. So Boston thinks they could move him. So that would be a good look for them. A domino effect that came out of the Pistons hiring Van Gundy was the Warriors signing Steve Kerr to his first head coaching job. The Warriors' first choice was Van Gundy, and Kerr had his heart set on Golden State. But since the Warriors seemed infatuated with Van Gundy, Kerr was seemingly ready to accept Phil Jackson's offer to become the new head coach of the New York Knicks. This was until the Pistons sniped Van Gundy from under Golden State's nose and left the job available to their second choice, Steve Kerr. Kerr, who was great friends with Phil Jackson all the way back to when the two won 3 NBA championships together with the Chicago Bulls, found it hard to say no to the man who he has so much respect for. But ultimately, he made the right decision for his family. Kerr lives in California and is seemingly very prepared for his first head coaching job. Kerr may have had no head coaching experience, but he did spend 6 years as the general manager of the Phoenix Suns, so he does have a little experience with personnel decisions. And he won 5 NBA championships as a player, so he knows what kind of qualities to look for in players, as well as how to get the most out of the guys he has now. So we're going to start with you, JR. Is Kerr a good fit with the Warriors organization? I know you have some controversial opinions on this. We've seen first-year head coaches like Jason Kidd have success, and that is seemingly becoming a trend now with Kerr and with the rumors of Derek Fisher going to your Knicks, being their top choice. What are your thoughts on Kerr and the Warriors? And would Van Gundy maybe have been a better fit in your opinion?
I think Steve Kerr was the right guy. I think they got the right guy, in my opinion. I mean, my Knicks were going after him really hard, and obviously because of his experience, and he was a higher up for the Phoenix Suns for a while back in the Steve Nash days.
Back when they made the Western Conference Finals all the time, yeah, they were.
Oh yeah, Nash, Stoudemire all day.
Yeah. I had a friend actually who went to high school with Amari Stoudemire, and they were good friends. He went to school in Orlando, so and I used
like if
there before I moved here.
If you were a white boy and you were into basketball, like Steve Nash was your hero.
Oh yeah, Steve Nash is the man. I'm really sad he's riding away on the Lakers right now. Honestly.
Yeah, that's
Steve
sad.
Nash after Steve Nash said he's basically only playing for the money, he became my favorite player.
Really?
Yeah, he was fucking honest.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
I mean,
he's fucking Canadian.
If there was any player that got me into basketball, it was probably Steve Nash.
Yeah. So you think Kerr was a good fit for the Warriors? You think they got the right guy?
I do. I would rather have Steve Kerr than Van Gundy, a guy that has been let go from how many different jobs. I mean, sure, he was successful, but I mean, look at those teams that.
Maybe with Van Gundy getting the hell out of Florida might have been the best. Might have been the best.
That was a good decision, though.
I mean,
that was a good decision.
No matter how good the Heat are, the Florida basketball team is always going to be the Gators.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Billy Donovan.
That doesn't sound. You say Florida basketball, you instantly think of the Heat. You're like, the Gators, what?
That's the team, all right? Damn it. So you think Kerr was a good fit. So tell us what you think about Mark Jackson and his. I do think it's a little silly when a coach who wins 51 games, a franchise record for your team, is let go. So I know he has problems with the owner.
I have a question. Does anyone know the exact reason why he was let go? I mean, he led his team to multiple playoffs.
I think it might have been
multiple playoffs, and he just really good. I mean, he got let go for, it seems like, no real apparent reason, and then they bring out this random white guy and pay him a bunch of more money to coach a very talented basketball team.
Well, one of the things the owner said was that he thought that Mark Jackson was the perfect coach for the stage they were at when they started to build the team, and he'd gotten them to the peak of what he was capable of as their coach, and he felt that they needed a new coach to get them to that next step. And apparently Steve Kerr is the guy they believe in, although he believed in Van Gundy a little more. But
obviously.
I think what it was a result of, I don't think they thought, hey, Steve Kerr, who's never coached a team before, is going to be the guy who's going to get us to the next level, when part of the reason they let Mark Jackson go is his lack of experience.
I completely agree. I think Steve Kerr was the right guy for the job if, Jackson wasn't
I think
there.
they targeted
I would have kept
Van Gundy.
Jackson.
They targeted Van Gundy. They got rid of Mark Jackson to target Van Gundy. They realized they couldn't get Van Gundy.
Yeah, and Kerr was a, oh, shit, kind of thing.
So
like,
Kerr
we need somebody to coach our boys.
Kerr was left, and they took him because they had to at that point. Mark Jackson wasn't going to go back. I know Steph Curry had Mark Jackson's back, and I think Mark Jackson's he'll be coaching again within a year. I think he was doing a good job in Golden State, and I was kind of
he's too good of a coach to not have to be out of the only reason I think he wouldn't be coaching next is if he just chose to take a break.
I think he'd take a year off and he'll be fine. I think the most he takes off. Doc Rivers is saying how hard this league is now, though, when a 51-win coach gets let go right away.
Yeah, but I think with my big thing with them, I kind of equate him getting fired to kind of similar to, it's a different sport when Marty Schottenheimer was fired by the Chargers after winning 14 games. Sometimes it's just, for them, getting to the playoffs isn't good enough anymore.
I thought it was 13 games, actually. Sorry.
13?
I don't know, 13 or 14. It might have been 13.
It might have been. I don't know. It was somewhere in there where it was just getting to the playoffs and getting knocked out in the first round isn't good enough anymore.
I'll stat check.
14-2 sounded a little ridiculous to me. So I knew it was up there, but I didn't think it was like 14.
Yeah, it actually was 14-2.
Oh, it was.
Yep.
Oh, sorry. I apologize.
Yeah. Okay. And I think that was the game where LT kind of threw a bitch fit after the game when the Patriots were dancing on the Chargers logo.
Oh, I'd be mad too. Shit.
Yeah, I can't blame him.
I mean, you remember when Terrell Owens did that on the Cowboy Star?
Oh my God! And then he ended up going there.
They ended up playing for them like 5 years later.
Yeah, and crying over Tony Romo. That's my quarterback.
That's his quarterback. He lost his team.
Yeah. Oh, T.O. Ugh.
That's your quarterback, but like 3 years before you were dancing on his star.
That's just T.O. being T.O.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the guy wearing the Nick Foles jersey knows all about Terrell Owens.
You guys remember when Donovan's mom spit in T.O.'s Chunky Campbell?
Yeah.
Remembers.
Hey, and I also remember when Donovan McNabb was bounce passing things in Minnesota.
Hey, fuck you. All right.
When he was throwing bounce passes to Adrian Peterson.
Moving on. We're gonna move on away from the Nike talk before I start crying.
Do you remember the 04 NFC championship game?
When we're on the topic of potential head coaches, I've heard, I'm not sure how true what I know John Stockton is number one on the Utah Jazz is their wish list. But my question with him is, what are they gonna do? He has no broadcasting experience.
Right.
What about Reggie Miller?
I think it is really funny when the point guards who literally just retire become coaches, like Jason Kidd, and then like supposedly Derek Fisher too.
Yeah,
the
Fisher's
Lakers and the Knicks are both interested in Derek Fisher. That's really funny. Like,
I'm pretty sure the Lakers might as well just hire Kobe Bryant as a player coach. He wants a say in who the coach is anyway.
I would love to see that happen. That would be so cool.
I mean, back when Peyton Manning was on the Colts, he basically was the coach.
When Jim Caldwell was the coach? Yeah, Peyton Manning was the coach. Yeah, absolutely.
Jim Caldwell was his assistant coach.
Speaking of NFL, we're going to move on to a little fantasy side project. We thought it would be cool to do a mini draft and say we would pick one offensive and one defensive player to build an NFL franchise around. One of the people who is in it is not here, so it's going to be a 3-round thing. I'll go first, and I will be choosing for my offensive player. The way it's going to work is we're going to start with offensive players. I'm going to pick mine first, then Josh, then JR. And then for defense, JR is going to go, then Josh, then me. So, and you guys will get to tell us either on our Facebook or Twitter, or you can call into the show and tell us what you think, which of us you think has the best chance of getting our built team to the Super Bowl in a few years. All kinds of things you're taking into consideration, age, whatnot, whatever. You're thinking about the guy you're going to build your franchise around, not necessarily who you think is the best player right this second.
Before we get into that, I just want to throw a quick score alert, because there was a Game 7 in the Western Conference Finals of the NHL, and the LA Kings routed the Anaheim Ducks 6-2. They'll play Chicago in the Western Conference Finals.
The Rangers are still in, so I'm still okay.
I'm just glad Sidney Crosby got knocked out. I fucking hate that guy. All right.
I thought you didn't like hockey though.
I hate Sidney Crosby. He's Canadian. All right.
I'm a big hockey fan too, but
about 60%
my
of the
hockey
league
team isn't relevant.
Yeah. Who's your hockey team?
New Jersey Devils.
Oh, okay.
Martin Brodeur is a god.
All right. All right, well, I'll go first, and I'll choose for my offensive player, Aaron Rodgers. This is why. In the 2005 NFL Draft, Rodgers was thought by many to be the perfect choice for the 49ers at 1. He was a California guy, made all the throws, was accurate, had a good arm, made good decisions, and he was mobile. Everything you look for in a quarterback. But the 49ers seemed enamored with Alex Smith. Even Smith's coach at Utah, Urban Meyer, said he would take Rodgers if he were the 49ers. But they did not listen, and it came back to bite them. Rodgers got to sit under Brett Favre and absorb all the information you need to be a good pro. But he didn't really have to learn any mechanical things from Favre. Favre was never really an X's and O's guy. This means Rodgers already had all the mental skills there to be a good quarterback in the league. If he didn't take anything from Favre about being a good quarterback, that means it was all there already. He had the physical tools. He had the mental tools. He got to sit there and let his body rest for 4 years, 5 years while he learned. He didn't have to take nearly as many hits as someone else in his position may have.
Exactly.
He's still young enough to build a franchise around, but he's been around long enough to have the experience to be a great leader. And trust me, Rodgers can make all the throws. The guy has given me nightmares for 9 years now as a Vikings fan, and I'd want nothing more than for him to not play for the Green Bay Packers. So Rodgers is my guy at number 1. It pains me to say he is the best player in our league and will be for a long time. Josh, I defer to you.
Well, I'll say about the Aaron Rodgers thing, the learning from Brett Favre thing, I've actually since learned that's kind of a misnomer, but that's a different discussion for a different day. For me, I'm going with the quarterback too. And again, I'm going with who I think after the big 4 quarterbacks, I think we can all agree Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Peyton, and those are the top 4. Mm-hmm. And the guy I'm taking out, he isn't one of those 4, but he'll be entering his 3rd year in the league, and I think you can make a legitimate case for him being the next best quarterback in the league, and that's Andrew Luck. Mm-hmm. Now, Andrew Luck, really now in today's NFL, there's all the talk about, you need this running quarterback, which I think, for lack of a better term, is total bullshit. Mm-hmm. You have to win games from the pocket, but Andrew Luck is a perfect mix of, because he I believe he had like 6 rushing touchdowns last year, and he's deceptively athletic, and he's really, in today's NFL, if you're going to build a perfect quarterback, it's Andrew Luck. He's 6'4", about 230, can, like Aaron Rodgers, make all the throws, and it's just when you watch him, he has also one thing. My favorite aspect of him too is something that I also love about Tom Brady. He just has that killer instinct. He doesn't care what the score is. He doesn't want to just beat you. He wants to embarrass you. Now that was right. I think the game that was most evident in was Peyton Manning's quote unquote return to Lucas Oil Stadium, where basically the whole week was talking about Peyton Manning's return. And I honestly think Andrew Luck took that as a slight on himself and I can't say I blame the guy from a human level. If he looked out of the stands and how many of his fans are wearing jerseys with the other guy's name on it.
Mm-hmm. And you sound like a jealous ex-boyfriend.
Yeah, well.
I think my favorite thing about Luck is his combination of his size and his smarts. The guy makes great decisions. He's really intelligent. He went to Stanford.
Yeah, and
really
people forget at Stanford, and he graduated. He graduated with an architecture degree, which is a 5-year degree in 3.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
The thing I like most about him is his 8 wins in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
His rookie
that's
season.
absurd.
And there's also that beard. The neck. That's the most immaculate neck beard I've ever seen in my life.
10 out of 10 would bang. Yeah, the guys have got the prototype NFL.
And also on top of him too, he's completely fucked up being a quarterback prospect for every other quarterback to ever come out. If you're not Andrew Luck, you're not worth the number 1 pick now.
You get overanalyzed to death. They're like, they look at Teddy Bridgewater. They're like, everything about you is really good, but like you're small, so no.
Yeah.
Same thing about Russell. They said the same thing about Russell Wilson.
Andrew Brees.
No, it wasn't.
Andrew Brees. Yeah.
And a lot of the draft people basically said the only thing that was stopping Russell Wilson from being a top 5 pick was he was 5'10".
Yeah. Which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna cut a guy like that much because of 2 inches, really?
So it was really more like 4, because they say really that 6'2" and above is the idea, but then with Russell Wilson and Drew Brees, those are isolated incidents. Because for every Drew Brees or Russell Wilson, there's 10 Doug Flutys. So I get tired of using that.
Hey, Doug Flutie wasn't so bad.
No, but I mean,
it's not that bad.
You get that one throw out of your head, and Doug Flutie is not that good.
No, I mean, that thing is.
I have to say that because Doug Flutie was from Boston College, and I'm a big Clemson Tigers fan, and Boston College and
every
Clemson.
short quarterback, they're like, oh, he could be the next Drew Brees. Yeah, he also could be the next Doug Flutie, Eric Crouch, Pat White, Tyrod Taylor.
Speaking of Pat White, did you guys hear the supposed?
The whole Nick Saban thing. I saw that
Josh,
too.
Go ahead and take that one. Josh, go ahead and take that one.
Yeah, I saw. First of all, I saw I think it was one of the Alabama safeties, I believe, with a brand new Corvette, and then I'm not sure if it was a tweet or a Facebook message or something along those.
That was a tweet.
Yeah, where Pat White basically said, you guys are basically, and I'm going to paraphrase, I don't have the exact tweet on hand. He said, you guys are acting like this is something new at Alabama. I'm so glad I turned down a brand new Corvette to be a Mountaineer.
He said, don't be surprised, like you guys knew the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, and then apparently Nick Saban he's completely shot down the idea, but.
Oh yeah, he's denying it completely.
But if I do recall, Pat White got recruited before when Nick Saban was pretending to be an NFL coach, so.
All right, well, that was a beautiful segue. JR, you go ahead and give us your third pick guy.
Oh, it's my turn. I was still contemplating. Well, when I first heard about this, my first immediate pick was going to be Tom Brady. I mean, that guy can make a high school wide receiver look like an all-pro.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect example. Who the hell's Deion Branch without Tom Brady? But I started thinking, how old is Tom Brady? Do I really want this guy to be, my franchise guy for 3 years, 4 years? No. And I'm going to go with a little unconventional pick. Yeah, a little unconventional pick here. I'm not going to go with a quarterback. I'm going to go with a running back. I'm going to go with Adrian Peterson.
All right. I have to love that.
Yeah. If you're not, if you're not going to go with the quarterback, why not go with the best? Who's in my opinion the best non-quarterback in the league?
I understand that this in the past 5 years, this has become a completely passing league. I mean, that is is starting to be the bread and butter. But I mean,
also,
you're not going to have a passing game if you don't have a run game.
But let me stop. It's a passing league thing might be a misnomer. If you look at last year, the best 2 teams in the league were not pass-happy teams. The 49ers and the Seahawks, they ran the crap out of the football.
Oh, yeah. They ran the ball and they played defense. That is what they did.
So I think the whole it's a passing league thing, it's becoming kind of a false prophecy now.
I've always said the reason they say it's a passing league is because you get big plays out of the passing game more often than you do out of the running game. Not when you're Adrian Peterson.
Yeah.
So.
And also, this is something I think me and Chris have talked about in the past. They say running backs are a dime a dozen, quote unquote, which they are in a sense. Unless you have
good running, like top of the line running backs are not dime a dozen.
Marshawn Lynch, those guys aren't a dime a dozen.
McCoy,
you can show LaShawn McCoy in there. Yeah. Thank you.
McCoy, Jamal Charles, Adrian Peterson, Eddie Lacy. Those
number
guys.
one running back this year, by the way.
Like if you
not
have
named Adrian Peterson.
Those guys are Adrian Peterson. Those guys aren't. But like say I don't know Fred Jackson, guys like that. Those guys are a dime a dozen. But a great running back. That's the big difference. Where it's not as seamless as some people may make it out to be.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can take a look at all 32 teams in the NFL, and they at least have, you would say, a B-plus running back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who would you say, which team has the worst running back?
The worst starting running back?
Yeah, the worst starting running back.
You got to go with the Titans with Sean Green.
Yeah, but I mean, still, he had some good moments back when he was in Tennessee. Or not Tennessee, New York, my bad.
Yeah, but there was also a lot of those 21 carries for 75-yard games that I remember watching.
Well, that wasn't entirely his fault.
Who is the Cardinals running back? J.J. Arrington?
Andre Ellington.
Andre Ellington.
Does he start?
I think he's the starting running back. His Mendenhall retired.
Oh.
I'd throw him in there with
Andre
Sean
Ellington.
Well,
Them Clemson boys.
Well, at least Andre Ellington was fun to watch.
Oh, yeah. He was fun to watch in college, too.
Yeah, and how he ended up being a sixth-round pick, I'll never know. But yeah, I had a good chance of watching Andre Ellington run all over the Falcons' defense this year. I'm not like it was great because I owned him in fantasy, but just as a fan, it just ripped my heart out.
All right. Well, starting the reverse order, defensive players, second round. JR gets the first pick on defense since he had to pick last in offense. So, JR, who did you pick to build your defense around?
Is there any other, like, if you can have one defensive player, is there any other choice than Patrick Willis? I mean, really?
That is a very solid choice, arguably the best middle linebacker in the league.
That's a good choice.
Arguably, I would say probably the number one linebacker in the league. I mean, if I see Patrick Willis on that side, and I'm a quarterback, I'm trying my damnedest not to look that way, not to run that way.
I see him on TV and I'm terrified.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. The dude's a beast. Like you would have asked me that question 5 years ago, I probably would have said Troy Polamalu.
And also, a fun fact too about Patrick Willis. Patrick Willis, Adrian Peterson, Darrelle Revis, and Calvin Johnson all came out in the 2007 draft, and Jamarcus Russell was the number one pick.
Wow, that's awesome. I got to remember that.
I feel bad for Raider Nation.
Yeah, I mean,
poor guys.
Like Adrian Peterson, Calvin Johnson, without a doubt, the two best at their position. Then with Revis and Willis, I mean, there's maybe cases you can make for other guys, but they're at least in a conversation.
Yeah,
and then Jamarcus Russell.
They're in the top three, and then Jamarcus Russell weighs more than his offensive line.
Yeah, he weighs more than all four of those guys together.
He ruined the whole.
I don't know about that, but he weighed more than one of his linemen.
You're picking one, take one thing. He ruined that for every other team. Because
I'm sorry, but I don't want a 310-pound quarterback.
Yeah. And I still say he's the reason why Matt Ryan wasn't the number one pick the very next year, and I thank him every day of my life for that.
That's fair. All right, Josh, who would you have the choice of any defensive player in the league minus Patrick Willis? Who do you build your defense?
Well, Patrick Willis was a great choice, but I was afraid you were going to take the player I wanted. And this player is without a doubt, in my mind, the best defensive player in the league, and that's J.J. Watt.
I knew it.
J.J. Watt.
Yeah. I mean,
I just didn't want to go like defensive line because it's honestly I think it's kind of hard to create a defense around a defensive line.
Yeah, but also if you look at with J.J. Watt, he can do one thing better than anyone else, since the hardest thing on a defense to do and that's create an interior pass rush. I don't know how many times I saw him split double and sometimes triple teams looking like seamlessly. I remember the game when they played the Seahawks. I believe it was week 3 or 4, and he was being double teamed by Russell Okung and whoever that left guard was. Russell Okung, one of the best left tackles in the league, and he just basically just parted them like the Red Sea. And really, I think if you have a great pass rush, the linebackers and you can get by with average linebackers in secondary. And I think J.J. Watt. I just think you build an offense and a defense from the offensive line and defensive line from the inside out.
See, I'm went the other way with that one. I say you can have a mediocre defensive line if you have outstanding linebackers.
Yeah, but
different strokes for different folks. I guess.
But the only thing I'll say about that is, especially watching the Falcons defense this year, when your defensive line is getting ran into the linebackers, doesn't matter who the linebackers are, they're going to get ran through.
That's a good point.
Right.
But I can't argue with you taking Patrick Willis, really.
You took the best pass rusher in the league, and you took the best linebacker. I'm going to
take the best safety or corner?
I'm going to take. I thought about taking Richard Sherman, actually. I'm going to take a guy who I think you could make an argument for as the best linebacker. He's the reigning defensive player of the year from the Carolina Panthers, linebacker Luke Kuechly. This guy has the speed to go sideline to sideline, tackle any running back. Any running back who's trying to bounce out to the outside, Kuechly will run him down. you're a wide receiver or a tight end, and you come over the middle. You don't come in Kuechly's zone. He's gonna knock you the fuck out. You don't do that. Not up in here. No. I think Luke Kuechly is a tremendous player to build a defense around. If you're starting, you want to get a young guy with a ton of talent to build around. I think you can't go wrong with a guy like Luke Kuechly. I think that the guy just oozes talent, and he's just going to have Pro Bowl after Pro Bowl after Pro Bowl. I mean, was he a rookie this year? Anyone of his player of the year?
I think he was a sophomore.
And he was, and it was his rookie year. He led the league in tackles.
Yeah. So
let that sink in. The fucking league.
Sophomore slump? Nah, defensive player of the year. So
I'd have to say that the Panthers definitely have like the third best defense in the NFC.
Yeah. I can't argue with that.
Pretty damn good.
I really thought you were going to go Earl Thomas, though, just for the hilarity factor of it.
I honestly thought you were going to go Richard Sherman. Like, that was my honest choice. Like, I thought you were going to go Richard Sherman.
My thing with DBs is DB is such a deep position. You can still.
It is. There's so many good ones, but they're so important. That's the thing about them.
I look at DB and safety in particular, like running back. If you just have middle of the road safety, you're fine. But if you have like Earl Thomas, Jarvis Bird, those guys are like the Adrian Peterson type at their position, where they can change a game a lot more than your average safety.
Another thing too. So. You got to remember, in like a draft aspect, Patrick Willis is off the board. J.J. Watt's off the board.
Yeah.
I think that you could make cases for maybe Joe Hayden or Patrick Peterson or somebody to possibly be a better corner than Sherman. It's not a guarantee that Sherman is the best. I think he is, but it's not a guarantee.
I think he is.
There's an argument there where I don't think you can make an argument against Kuechly after Patrick Willis is gone.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue that. I think they're 1 and 1A in the league right now.
So that's why I just think that's the safest place to build around if that's what you're doing.
Yeah. And there's no. I mean, obviously when you have really pick of any defensive player in the league minus J.J. Watt, and it's hard to make a bad choice.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Well, you guys let us know on our Facebook page or on Twitter who you think has the best combination of players to get to a championship in a few years. Obviously, we all think ours is, but, I mean, it's up to what you guys think, and we'll read them off on the show next week. A few final notes here. Donald Sterling plans to take legal action against the NBA and doesn't intend to pay the $2.5 million fine issued to him by Commissioner Silver.
And you forget to mention also that he basically took a few shots at Magic Johnson saying, in so many words, he has AIDS. Why should people look at him as a role model?
Wow.
What a flat-out ugly person. Like
in so many words, that's basically what he said. He goes, he has AIDS. Why should people look up to him? In so many, I'm like, he has a point.
Arrogance,
technically.
Racism. What an ugly person in general.
He technically has a point, but you don't have to say that publicly.
God, that's awful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. As the story progresses with Sterling in the NBA, we'll update you. Not a lot of information's been out. Just that obviously Sterling doesn't plan to take the thing laying down, and there's going to be a big legal battle with him in the NBA. I don't see how they can force him to pay the $2.5 million fine if he's not the owner of the team anymore. Yeah. I don't really see how they can.
And also,
didn't he try to give it to his wife or something?
Yeah. And then apparently LeBron James too. He was quoted saying that he doesn't think that any member of his family.
Oh no, because he'll be running it. He'll be running
exactly. He'll be running it. Like it's still the same. Nothing changes. Literally nothing changes.
I think and LeBron James. I saw this a few days ago on Twitter. That he was quoted saying that he doesn't think any member of his family should be allowed to have any ownership in any.
I completely agree.
Any pro sports team.
Then the thing is that you got to remember, not only even if you think that it was unfair of them to take his team away or whatever, because there are people that stand on that side of the fence about it, that they think that the NBA was wrong in just stripping him of his team. They don't have the right to do that or whatever. Sure, fine.
No,
you're an idiot.
no,
whatever. But okay.
Sorry.
But
no.
But I'd imagine that Donald Sterling, he was like fucking 90 years old. He's gonna fight this till the day he dies.
The fans, which is like tomorrow potentially, the fans will boycott the game.
Breaking news. No.
I mean, you can't have an entire uprising. There were Warriors fans saying they wouldn't go to their home game against the Clippers if something wasn't done about Donald Sterling. So, I mean, that right there should tell you that there's going to be an uprising in the NBA.
But at the same time,
I don't know about you guys, but I want to see Rick Ross buy the Clippers. Just saying.
I heard Floyd Mayweather too. I just want to see some really hood, really hood,
like the blackest man possible. I want to see buy the Clippers.
But also, like we're talking about, people threatening to boycott. That people always say that shit. I want to see it actually happen. Like when there was all those NFL fans that were threatening to stop watching the NFL during the replacement referee thing, and they kept watching. So
that was a little different.
It's not gonna change. I mean, if I had a chance to have courtside seats because no one else wants to watch the Clippers game, you bet your ass I'm gonna be right there watching Blake Griffin dunk all over whoever the hell they're playing against.
Side note on what Josh just said, the replacement refs were my heroes. But anyway, that's another thing for another day. It was a catch. Anyway,
topic here. How crazy is the Texans' defensive line going to be? I mean, Jadeveon Clowney and J.J. Watt.
I've heard people say like 40 sacks. That's a little.
That's so scary.
You mentioned Lewis Nix, Whitney Merciless, Brian Cushing.
That's such a scary thought.
Just every mock draft I've done so far, I've taken either the Texans or the Rams defense in fantasy. Every single one, no matter what.
You've just taken the Rams because of Michael Sam, haven't you?
Ram Sam.
Gay pride.
Sam Ram.
There were lots of people with names like that in the mock draft.
I just think it's just so mean that the first openly gay guy gets drafted by the Rams.
Yeah.
Like, come on, that's so easy. It's so easy.
Jeff Fisher's laughing his ass off when they draft him. He's like, yes.
It kind of makes sense though, really, because I mean he played at Missouri, so it's not, I mean I think that fan base probably already at least a percentage of them are probably Missouri football fans.
He made history. He made history, guys. He was the first ever player that was happy about being drafted by the St. Louis Rams.
Oh, I've seen that before.
I was on the internet in the last 2 days. Don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah. And then with just the uproar with this Michael Sam stuff has gotten ridiculous. Like
I'm so sick of hearing about a relevant 7th round pick that's probably not going to.
Right. Exactly.
He's more interested in being.
I honestly think he was drafted because of that, just to create publicity.
He's more interested in being famous for being the first gay player than making a team and getting a yellow jacket.
What if he's not even really gay? What if that's just?
One of my friends actually mentioned.
Didn't he get an endorsement deal or something?
Oh no, Oprah's doing a reality show starring him, and I think he has.
That's money right there. I mean, let's all pretend to be gay and go in the NFL.
If you're a mediocre player and you knew you had a very low chance of making an NFL roster,
I would say I'm gay or something. You know, exactly. The guy's a genius if he's not.
No, but going back to the mediocre thing, is he mediocre really? I mean, he was co-defensive player in the SEC. That's supposed to be the great.
Off of 3 games.
Co-defensive player?
Yeah, he led the SEC in sacks this year.
How did that happen?
Off of 3 games.
I mean,
JadeveonClowney.com. That's all you need to know.
Jadeveon Clowney doesn't.
How is he co?
Because Clowney got quadruple teamed every play last year.
No, and also he also.
Yeah. All right. The entire offensive line guard Clowney, and maybe our halfback will try to chop block whoever else comes out.
No, there's also games where Clowney didn't even try, which it was just it was.
Well, he knew he was going to be the number 1 pick regardless.
And
I mean, did you see that hit against Michigan? I mean, come on.
Yeah, but then aside from that hit, Taylor Lewan stonewalled him in that game. Mm-hmm. People forget about that though.
I mean, being a big Clemson Tigers fan, no one knows about Jadeveon Clowney like I do. I mean, that guy still gives me nightmares.
Yeah. Well, I hope you won't have to worry about him anymore. He's playing in the other conference.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
We'll see. There's a rumor floating around that Johnny Manziel texted the Browns quarterback coach during the draft and said, "Let's tear up the league together." No confirmation from either party on if it's true or not. I'm not going to overreact to that.
Also, and who's to say the Browns? The Browns quarterback coach is the only one he texted to.
Because everybody.
Yeah, I'll say. I bet you he group texted every quarterback coach in the league.
Just at the big old Facebook chat.
I still don't know if I like Johnny Manziel or not yet. I know it's time to figure out if I like him or not, but his cockiness is just
I love it. I love players.
It's entertaining. Don't get me wrong. It's entertaining.
If that is true, that's a lot more cocky than anything A.J. McCarron allegedly said or did.
Yeah.
I loved watching Johnny football play in college. He had so many tremendous, miraculous plays. He's really fun to watch. If he's successful in the NFL, that's good for everyone. You know.
Do you guys like the quarterback that the Jags picked up?
I think it was a huge reach. I think they drafted him.
But I said this before. If you believe in a quarterback, take him. It shouldn't matter where you're drafting. Christian Ponder, Jake Locker, guys. It doesn't. I think if you believe in a quarterback, you should take him wherever. It shouldn't matter.
I just think they're a quarterback.
I disagree with that. I mean, if you know a guy like that is going to be around and you don't have to pick him up in the third pick, trade it to somebody like the Bills. You could have picked up that trade because they would have been willing to go number 1 for Sammy Watkins.
But who's to say that he would have been there when they picked him in the second round?
Not even the second round. You could have just traded down and got like an extra pick.
Yeah. And so even if you do that and he fails miserably, you're getting fired anyway. Might as well go out swinging.
That's a good point. I don't know. I agree with that. I just think the Jaguars specifically are more than a quarterback away. That team is the least talented team in the NFL.
I said that.
Did Maurice Jones-Drew, did he go anywhere?
He's a backup in Oakland now.
Oh, man.
I mean, he's going to play 8 games, and Darren McFadden's going to play 8 games.
Yeah, but also,
I really liked
going back to the Blake Bortles thing. I would say that it might have been been a bad. But then if you look at the rest of their draft, they got his former teammate Storm Johnson. They drafted Marquise Lee. They drafted one of the receivers from Fresno State whose name's escaping me right now. They've brought pieces in with them, and plus there's Cecil Shorts and
Allen Robinson from Penn State too. They signed a lot of wide receivers.
Yeah, so I mean, it looks like that they at least have, because if they were just throwing them out there with what they had last year, it would have failed.
All right.
And
if you can name more than 3 players on the Jacksonville Jaguars defense without using a computer, I'll be impressed.
Paul Plosnuzzi.
Yeah, that's the only one I could.
I think White Lowry and
Okay, I'll give you Lowry.
Does Dirty Incy still play there?
Lesney's the only one.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. They need a defense. Teams are putting up 35 points against them, like it's nothing.
How many of those points were off of Blaine Gabbert interceptions in the red zone?
Yeah, but still, you still need a defense. Really? I did not know that.
So how much playing time do you think Bortles gets this year? Then you guys, do you think?
I think he starts the first. I think he starts the first 8 games.
From what I've heard, him and the Jags have both said that Blake Bortles and the Jags have both said that he's expected to start the year as a backup, and he's okay with that.
He will start the season as a backup. I think he plays at some point, though. I think there'll be blowout games where he'll come in and get some action. There's no way the guy doesn't play.
Or Chad Henne will just be as inept as Chad Henne is, and by week 6 he'll be thrown in.
I can see Bortles starting a minimum of 4 games this season.
Yeah, with or without injury.
I'm saying he starts 8 games for him. At beginning or end of the season.
Yeah, I think a minimum of 4, not even counting injuries. I just think Henne loses the job at some point. There's no way Chad Henne starts 16 games with the Jags.
Yeah, I'll say that he will start 4 games, but he'll probably play in 8 or 9. Just blowouts and injuries and whatnot.
Okay, that's a good one. Okay, that's fair. One last thing: Aaron Hernandez was indicted on the 2 murder charges from back in 2012. Everybody saw that coming, so it's not that big of a deal.
Oh yeah, he killed those people.
Obviously. I watched the movie.
Execution style.
That's it for another edition of Sports Talk Weekly. Josh, do you have anything you want to plug before we go?
Yeah, just my Twitter @Gomez_time76. Also for any fantasy football fans out there, and I have my fantasy football blog that I just put recently, it was in the last week or so, I uploaded my top 5 fantasy impact rookies. It's at fantasyfbcorner.wordpress.com. And if there's any pro wrestling fans out there, me and a friend of mine, we actually have a pro wrestling blog we do also. It's also at WordPress. It's wrestlecrew.wordpress.com.
All right. JR, it was a pleasure having you on the show. Is there anything you want to plug or anyone you want to shout out?
Not off the top of my head. No, I don't even have a Twitter, so, I mean.
All right, man. It's the 20th.
I mean, I would love to be back on the show if you guys are.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be in touch. All right. All right, and as always, tune in to Sports Talk Weekly every week on Mega Powers Radio. You can find our archived episodes on YouTube and Stitcher Radio. Also, please like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @Sports Talk Weekly. Thanks for listening once again. Thanks to Josh, thanks to JR for coming on the show, and thanks to all of you, the fans, for continuing to support us every week. Until next time, stay classy.